I know a brother in my church who's got two living wives.
The counterpoint to the blues, religious music, was also profoundly affected by the Great Northern Migration. This, coupled with the impact of a popular Jubilee quartet from Fisk University and other black colleges, inspired a strong grassroots movement of community-based quartet singers.
Then it moves to the community, and every four-part singing group that can put harmony together puts together a group and tries to go on the road to sing.
In the mid-30s, one of these groups from the Tidewater area in Virginia hit the mass media big time. The name was the Golden Gate Quartet, but fans called them simply the Gates.
The Golden Gate was on CBS. They was on the big networks. They played places like Carnegie Hall and many other places that blacks wasn't welcome in a lot of cases, but these guys were.
The Golden Gates had a huge influence on most all the groups. They loved to hear the hand-clapping, finger-snapping spirituals that the Golden Gates did, and they would try to copy them. But here again, a lot of the whites wouldn't admit it, but that's what they loved.
The Golden Gates brought pop and jazz rhythms and what they called vocal percussion to sacred music. The Golden Gates inspired the next wave of energized Pentecostal quartets. A new driving sound marked the music of acts like the Five Blind Boys of Alabama, the Dixie Hummingbirds of North Carolina, the Swan Silvertones from Pittsburgh, and the Soul Stirrers from Texas. The gospel wasn't confined to groups singing. A new generation of dynamic soloists began to emerge as well. One of the best and most controversial was Sister Rosetta Tharpe.
Because I'm a woman guitarist, early on I was asked about influences, and they would always bring up her name, and I didn't find out about her until late 60s, early 70s. Rosetta Tharpe was a righteous and very, very powerful musician. Great guitar player.
She's one of those first people who not only performed in nightclubs, but performed sacred music in nightclubs. The church was not pleased.
I want to meet all of my brethren. Don't you know?
I used to love to hear her and see her sing, because she would come up on one leg and she would just be rocking, you know. Oh man, she could sing.
Other soloists helped spread the word, but none of them reached the popularity of the one called the Queen of Gospel, Mahalia Jackson.
Mahalia Jackson is a singer who finds full expression within the form that evolves in the black church.
Mahalia Jackson was born very poor in Louisiana. There are times when she said she would sit on the banks of the bayou there and just stare off into space and saying, "There's got to be a better life."
Mahalia moved from her home in New Orleans to Chicago, where she demonstrated songs for Thomas Dorsey as a way to sell his sheet music. She toured and even recorded with Dorsey, but Mahalia's breakthrough came in 1947 when she recorded "Move On Up a Little Higher" for Apollo Records.
I'm gonna move on up a little higher, meet old man Dad.
The record sold more than 1 million copies. Mahalia Jackson's success attracted the attention of Mitch Miller, the successful pop A&R man at Columbia Records.
And he told her, I will put an orchestra and a chorus behind you. I will market you as the world's greatest gospel singer, in which he did.
Although she continued to sing in churches, Jackson began to sell out stadiums and auditoriums, and she eventually took her music to the new medium of television.
Every Sunday, we'd be sitting at that television waiting to see her.
Come on, children, let's sing about the goodness of the Lord. Come on, children, let's shout.
I was very proud of Mahalia because she was one of our first for TV and things like that who was given the opportunity to present gospel.
Come on, children, let's sing about the goodness of the Lord. Come on, children, let's sing about the goodness of the Lord.
It was a different kind of style that she sang because it was a feeling. You know, that kind of thing. So you know it was coming from in here, which was wonderful.
Her voice, it just seemed like it just cut through my heart. And I felt something. At 8 years old, I felt the spirit, you know, and I didn't know what I was feeling. And I'll never forget it as long as I live. Never be another Sister Mahalia Jackson.
Showmanship in gospel reached a high point with the all-female Clara Ward singers.
They perform in full, beautiful gowns with rhinestones. They have wigs, and they do the shout on the stage. That performance energy is Pentecostal.
In the 50s, the Clara Ward singers often traveled with a well-known preacher, the Reverend C.L. Franklin. They greatly influenced his young daughter, Aretha. During the 60s, Aretha Franklin, as well as Sam Cooke from the Soul Stirrers, would take the gospel foundation and use it to create hit records and soul music. Once again, roots music was making its mark on American pop.
Oh, sit down.
No, 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 no.
Sit down.
One family group from Chicago defied easy comparison with other gospel groups. These were the Staple Singers, and their music was a blend of the older country and blues that Pop's Roebuck Staples had heard as a child in Mississippi, as well as the original harmonies of his children, Mavis, Purvis, Yvonne, and Cleotha.
When I first heard the Staple Singers, they had a sound unlike anything I'd ever heard before. They had a way of sliding to the notes. And Roebuck Staple, his sound, it was quiet and whispery, and it was his daughter, you know, who was blowing the roof off the joint.
He's a dang.
I was a little girl, but I was feeling this stuff. You know, I said, Daddy, these songs, you know, where did you? He said, Mary, these were songs that we used to sing years ago down south in Mississippi. Call and response. This is the way they used to sing down there.
I can't sit down. I can't sit down. I just got to heaven and I can't sit down. I can't sit down. Oh, I can't sit down. I can't sit down. I just got to heaven and I can't sit down. Just you can watch the sun, see how steady she runs. Don't let it catch you with your work undone. Joshua, the son of a nun. Big God Almighty, won't you stop the sun? God spoke to Joshua to do that.
When we started going to clubs, I said, Daddy, Mahalia Jackson wouldn't go to a club and sing. And Pops told me, he said, let me tell you something, Mavis. He said, Sister Mahalia Jackson has her way, and I have my way. He said, so we're singing the gospel, and we're taking it to the clubs because the people in the clubs won't come to church. He said, so we take the church to them in the clubs.
I asked Pops one time about, you know, you either on the God line or the devil line. And Pop said, well, I'm a gospel man. He said, but when you look down, don't you know when the Lord looks down on the world, he get a bad case of the blues.
Sit down, servant. Why don't you sit down, servant? Because I just got to heaven and I can't sit down.